안녕하세요, Cloud입니다. Hey guys, Cloud here. Welcome back to another lesson recap. In this lesson, we'll be covering a confusing topic because it works a bit differently than in English, and it can sound very similar, but I'll do my best to explain. Alright, let's get into it. This lesson is divided into 7 parts. 잘하다. 잘하다 means to do something well. Let's look at the most basic use, which is you just pick a noun and then you put 잘하다 after it. So, 눈싸움 잘해요? Are you good at staring contests? Another example, 수영을 잘해. I'm good at swimming. That's basically it. Now let's look at 잘 by itself. 잘 means the same thing as 잘하다, but it's used a bit differently. So let's look at this example here. 나는 어젯밤에 잘 잤어요. Or 잘 잤어. Here, 잘 is modifying the sleep. It's acting as an adverb that modifies a verb. In our previous examples, though, 잘하다 was modifying nouns such as swim. Let's look at a few more examples. 매운 음식 잘 먹어요? Do you eat spicy things well? Basically meaning, can you eat spicy things? There are a couple expressions in Korean that you wouldn't say them word for word like that in English, but that's just how it's used. So this is another example. 사실 잘 몰라요. Or 저는 잘 모르겠어요. To not know something well sounds very, to say like, oh, I don't know well, doesn't make much sense in English, but in Korean you would actually say that, 잘 몰라요. It generally gives the meaning that, I'm not sure or I don't really know. Another common word with 잘 is 생기다, 잘생기다, which means to be handsome, or literally to come out well. And the opposite, 못생기다, meaning to be ugly. Speaking of 못생기다, let's look at 못. Alright, 못하다. So far, it's been smooth sailing. 잘하다, 잘, pretty easy, pretty clear. 못하다, on the other hand, let's get into it. 못하다 can indicate that you're doing something, that you're bad at doing something. So being bad at swimming. 나는 수영을 못해요. The confusion comes between 못 and 못하다. So let's just look at it. 못 means to do something poorly. So rather than saying, let's just look at an example. 저는 못 먹어요. This can mean two things. It can mean I can't eat this, or like physically, or right now I can't. So in general, I'm just bad at eating it, or I can't right now. Let's look at another example. 저는 매운 음식 못 먹어요. Meaning I'm just bad at eating spicy food, or right now I can't at this specific situation. So in both examples we just saw, 못 clearly has different usages. In the first case, it's probably the fact that I just can't eat right now, because it's kind of weird to say, oh, I'm pretty bad at eating. But here in this situation, it probably means I can't really eat spicy food, using the first usage, rather than for a specific situation. I mean, you could be on a diet, for example, and that diet doesn't allow you to eat spicy food. But in general, it really depends on the situation. You really have to look at the situation and judge for yourself. But sometimes it's actually clear, like in this example here. 저는 어제 학교에 못 갔어요. Let's look at the two meanings. Clearly, it just doesn't make any sense to say I didn't go to school well yesterday. So it means the first one. It's quite obvious to be meaning the first meaning. That's a lot of meanings. Alright, the confusion actually happens when both of them make sense. Like 저는 어제 시험을 못 봤어요. I did poorly on the exam, or I didn't take it yesterday. Here, or I couldn't take it yesterday. It really depends on the context. If this was said by my classmate who took the exam right next to me, it obviously means that he did bad on the exam. But if a student were to go to a teacher and say this, like yesterday they didn't show up or they were sick, this would mean that they couldn't take it yesterday. Now, if you really wanted to emphasize that you're bad at something, like you do something poorly, you could add 잘. So 저는 어제 시험을 잘 못 봤어요. I didn't do well on the exam yesterday. Now, don't confuse 잘 못 with 잘못. 2 words versus 1 word. Alright, we'll explain the difference in just a minute, but there's 2 more things I want to touch on before moving on. So this is very common. If someone were to say 내 말을 들었어, did you hear what I said? English speakers learning Korean would often respond with 아니 안 들었어. But this means that they weren't listening on purpose, like with intent. which is not what you want to say. What you want to say is 아니 못 들었어, which means I couldn't hear you or I didn't hear you. It's very common to mess this up, so I wanted to add this into the video. Now, let's move on to 하지 못해 for a second. This is just another way of saying 못해. So, 저는 어제 못 공부했어요 can also be written as 저는 어제 공부하지 못했어요. They both mean the same exact thing. I just wanted to show this. Now let's go back and talk about the good stuff. 잘못 as one word. As one word, it means a mistake or incorrect. For example, 이거 잘못 만들었어요. This is made wrong. Or 잘못 봤어? Did I see wrong? The difference between 잘못 in one word and two word is not hard. What makes it difficult is that, or what makes it confusing is that they sound exactly the same. So you really have to pay attention to what could it possibly mean for you to be able to understand what the sentence is meaning. And that comes with just a lot of practice and a lot of exposure. Okay, the last part of this lesson is easy though. 잘 and 못 with comparatives and superlatives. When we did this last lesson, we said that we had more uses of 제일 and 가장, and this is the time to talk about them. Both 잘 and 못 can be used to compare something being better or something being worse, like 우리가 더 잘해요, we're better. This could be said if someone said like the other group of people are better, you could say no, we're better. 내가 수영을 제일 잘해, I'm the best at swimming. You could also say 내가 수영을 제일 못해, I'm the worst at swimming. Pretty simple. Alright, that's it for this lesson. Giving examples or anecdotes rather was kind of hard because there's some grammar and words that are almost always used with what we just learned, like 누가, for example. But we're going to learn that in the next lesson, so stay tuned for that. As usual, you can check out more of our videos that go along with this lesson in the description below.